Hi guys. I'm actually going to work on the try-its from example 1 from lesson 8.2. So if you want to pull up those questions, you can, and you can actually even answer them as we're doing it. But pause the screen if you need to get graph paper, if you want to go and look at example 1 from lesson 8.2. You don't have to, but the big one is have a ruler and have graph paper. And then you can come back on. Okay, so for try-its number 1, 2, and 3, for example 1, we're talking about comparing two integers. And just so you're aware of what integers are, all right, integers are all whole numbers, positive whole numbers, I should say. Positive whole numbers, it's opposites, which really means they're the negative whole numbers. And we can't forget the most important, which is 0. And let me move the light here a little bit so it's a little bit easier for you to see. Okay, so integers are positive whole numbers, and its opposites, which are the negative whole numbers, and 0. Oh, that looks like a donut. All right, you do not have any decimals. Those are not integers. All right, no fractions, and no mixed numbers or improper fractions. Right? Those are not integers. So this whole lesson on 8.2 is only going to deal with 0, positive whole numbers, and its opposites, which are negative whole numbers. All right, so if you want to write that down, that's going to be a really good vocabulary word for you. You're going to see that a lot, especially going ahead in 7th and 8th grade. Okay, so going back, I'll move that paper aside. Going back here, we're going to work with our integers. So we are going to compare 0 to -4. Now, a lot of you already probably know which one is greater, but what we need to work on is how to make number lines on our paper, and we're going to be using graph paper. So whenever it says to graph a number line, you do need to use your graph paper. All right. So the first thing is you need to remember which one is the less than and which one is the greater than. I always use this trick. Which one, if I moved it around, looked like the right way, the correct way of writing an L? So it looks like if I straightened this out a little bit, this would be the correct way to write the L. This is opposite. So this one is your less than. Because I know a lot of people forget which one is your less than. The one that is the backwards L is your greater than. Okay, so now that's good. So we need to know that. So now let's actually graph our integers. So you do usually want to try to include 0. Now, if you're looking, I already drew my line, and I need you to make sure you're using a ruler, and I want you to make sure you're actually drawing on the line of the graph. You don't want to draw in between. You want to actually draw on the lines of the graph. And then when you're drawing your intervals, you want to make sure you're also drawing on the line, okay? And then right below it, you're going to draw the number, write the number. So we have 0. We actually don't need to go to the positive side because we're only going to compare 0 and -4. -4 is actually on the left-hand side of the number line. This is where you need to be careful. When you're drawing, you want to get to -4. You're so used to writing 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes you make the mistake and start with your 1 here. Remember, your -1 is actually very close to your 0, and then you go backwards. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can space like we do when we graph, when we did our X and Y axis. So, but remember, if you're going to separate and skip spaces, you have to do it right away. So skip, and then you have -1. Okay, skip. Here's my -2. Skip. Here's my -3. Skip. Here's my -4. All right, so now we're not going to plot actually yet because I actually want to show you the other two ways. You can actually still include that 0. You don't have to space it, but then be careful because they're so close that you don't want to be writing it like this because it just looks so close you just might get confused. So remember how we did it when we graphed, you wrote it sideways. So you write -1 and you write right on the line, okay? Or you can actually do the exact same thing, but just write every other. So here's my 0. You're gonna skip, but now you're just writing -2 and you know that this is -1. Skip, and then there's your -4. All right, no matter what, you need to make sure you're doing the spacing correctly and your intervals correctly. So now let's go back. So we are going to, let's use my purple now. We're going to plot 0, and you're going to go right on the number line. And then you're going to plot -4. And again, right on the number line. So now what you have to do is you have to look. And the number, or the integer, I should say, that's furthest to the left. So furthest to the left is the least. All right. And the integer that is furthest to the right is the greatest. So you always start by looking. You don't change the order of this. So if it's starting with 0 and asking you to compare it to -4, you need to keep it this way. So where is my 0? My 0 is here. So which way is it? Furthest to the right or furthest to the left of the other integer? Well, it's actually furthest to the right, which means that this is greatest. Okay, so we're going to find our symbol, and our greater than symbol is there. And that's how you plot your ordered pairs. So now we'll be able to do this a little quicker for number 2 because it's hard, in the very beginning, I'm just showing you all the basics. So here we go for number 2. I already drew my line. Remember to use a ruler, draw right on the graphing line. I'm going to start with 0, and we're going to compare -5 to +5. So I'm going to space, you don't have to, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. And then I have to skip again first before I do 1. Skip 2, skip 3, skip 4, skip 5. Okay, so I need to plot -5, and I need to plot +5. So we're starting here with -5. So -5 is all the way to the left. So that means it is our least. It is because we're comparing it to +5. So it's furthest to the left. So we're going to say it's -5 is less than +5. And we're going to do one more because this one actually has 2 negatives. And I wanted to make sure you understood when you have 2 negatives. So again, we're going to plot 0. And you technically don't need to write every single one. You always should have 0 so it helps you know where the greater than side is. So I'm going to space it and go by 2's actually. -2, space -4, space -6, space -8. Okay. So we have to plot -8 and actually -7. And it is there. -7 is there. So this is -8. This is -7. Okay. So we have to look. -8 is our starting. And that's what we're looking at first. So -8 is here. And our other integer that we're graphing is here. So here's our -7, here's our -8. We have to look at -8. Where is it compared to -7? It's furthest to the left. So that means it's the least. So you're going to show a less than sign. All right. And that's it for graphing. So make sure you have graph paper for when you're doing your classwork for today, when you're submitting all of your questions. All right. Have a great day, everybody.